Hey, Dennis.
Hey, Chad. Good morning.
Morning.
Yeah, take all the pictures you like. You need a coffee or anything?
No, I'm good, thank you.
Okay. I don't keep soft drinks around, but I always have coffee.
Does your scarecrow work?
It did when I had the garden out here. Help yourself. Let me get a couple of things moved inside, and I'll be right back at you.
Sure, take your time. All right, so what can you tell me about the house?
It was built in 1850 along with the slave house, which is back here. If you want to walk down and take a look
Yeah,
at
I'd love
this.
to see that.
It's under renovation. I haven't seen anybody over there yesterday. Normally they work on the weekend.
Now, is this on your property?
No, I don't own it.
Okay.
I have 1.65 acres, and there's about a 2-acre tract next to me that I think was initially part of a town lot. My theory about Linton, Chad, is that this was the first house out here. It's somewhat unusual in architectural style. It really was more like the country houses that were cropping up. Although there's a lot of townhouses in Sparta that have the same hipped roof. And it's kind of deceiving because in the early 1990s, the young guy that bought this property tore off the original square pillars, which I can show you in a few minutes, and he replaced them with Lowe's components. So the Victorian was not original, and it's not even old Victorian, it's from the 90s. He did structurally a pretty sound job, and I think he made massive improvements, which made the house more livable for his family. But he altered the floor plan in such a way that caused it to be continued as upstairs bedrooms when the last young couple owned it. But when we go inside, I can show you a little bit more. But I mean, this is the slave house.
Are we allowed to go over there?
I don't think they would mind.
Okay.
I mean,
Now, was this associated with your house at one point?
Yes. This was the servant's house.
How many acres did the house have originally?
I have not researched the original farm. Linton really grew up between 1850 and 1862, and the reason that it became so prominent was that they established a male academy, and it was endowed heavily by Linton Stevens, who was Alexander Stevens' half-brother. So they named the town in his honor. But I think when Ezekiel Trice built my house, he did not actually live in the village.
Now, this is pretty fancy for a slave house. I guess it had been changed over time.
I don't know that the porch may have been enlarged. I mean, none of this is original, but it's a saddlebag. We had saddlebag slave houses on my family's plantation in Augusta, and they housed typically 2 people or 2 families. I think the windows are probably original, but whenever you see 2 front doors like this, if you're outside of Quaker settlements, then it typically was a slave dwelling.
And it's got the original siding you can see here.
Yeah, that's strange because it's shiplap, although it's not altogether that uncommon.
This is really neat. And then I guess they're planning on keeping a lot of the original materials.
I guess what they can. I mean, it's been in various stages of tenancy through the years. There was an exterior chimney, which was torn off. The mantle is missing. They may be over later today. I don't know.
Now, where's their house?
The owners, to my understanding, live in Savannah.
Oh, but I mean the house. Is there?
It was bought by the people who live in the big Greek revival next door.
Oh, okay. So that's the main house.
But originally, it had nothing to do with this property. Mrs. Boyer, who is from Macon, maintains that this was like a doctor's office for Dr. Stone that operated that house there. But I've done more research than she has. And this is, it was part of the Ezekiel Trice property. It has been altered so much during the years that it's just hard to conceive. But I do think this window is original. You can see some of the wavy old sandy walls and stuff there. It's usually and it looks like it was appropriate, for the period with the moldings and everything. Now the moldings were destroyed on that side.
Wow.
This is interesting. They found one of these. I found one, a partial one, on my property in a midden. So that pretty well proves that they cooked on an open fire, because these would have been put on hot coals. It had the legs. I've got one that I found in like a garbage dump on my place.
Huh. That's neat.
Ezekiel Trice operated tanning works in addition to whatever he grew for the sustenance of his own property and his own family.
So who was Ezekiel Trice?
Trice, T-R-I-C-E.
Okay.
I don't know anything about him. He was a resident that left after the end of the Civil War. There's a lot of legends and stories. There's a lady down the road that lived here when she was a young woman, and she claims that there was a story that when some of Sherman's flankers went through here, the young Northern soldiers actually kidnapped 2 of the older slaves from this house and marched them on foot into Sandersville, which was later burned. And in the mayhem of burning Sandersville, they escaped and they walked back home because this is all they knew. I presume they were older people who did not know what they would do in a freed situation. They knew no other home, and I guess they came back here.
And what was the name of the original owner of your house?
Trice, T-R-I-C-E,
Oh, okay.
Ezekiel Trice.
I see.
Now, I don't know what the outbuildings, represented, whether that was a kitchen. It's some sort of functional building that, was designed so it would have a fire. Mine had a smokehouse in the back, but I don't see any evidence that an exterior kitchen ever existed over here. I think the kitchen was in the basement, which was kind of unusual in the South, but it wasn't altogether that uncommon either. They have an interesting privy back there too. It's the only one I've ever seen with a lean-to roof, so that
is it back here?
Yeah, someone short or children, could have had the spot that was shallower. I've never come across anything like this before. It's a double double-seater.
This is a neat little community out here.
Oh yeah, have you driven to the end?
A little bit, yeah.
If you haven't, I was going to say we should go down. I don't come back here much in the summer. I usually prowl around in cold months, but that was a pretty. You can see the holes still in the boards, but see how short someone would have had to have been to sit on the other end of that. And it isn't just that the roof collapsed, because the structural corner members are sawn so that it shed water off to the right.
And it's kind of down behind the embankment, so a little bit more privacy.
Privacy and, you know.
Wow.
And this would follow the pattern of most slave dwellings that were always to the rear and always, they said, downwind. That's what I was told in Augusta, that, you know, they were built in a way so that the prevailing west winds would blow the smell away from the main house.
Do you have any old photographs of the original owner? Or?
No. I don't know that any photographs existed. I've been able to find very little so far, because the Hancock County Courthouse has burned several times. I thought that everything was backed up in Atlanta, but in some instances it's not. Did you get a picture of this?
Yep. And what is that, do you think?
I don't really know whether that was an exterior kitchen. You know, it's different construction with the board and batten. Whether that would have been an auxiliary kitchen or if it would have been a residence. With such a small chimney stack, typically they would have had some kind of wood stove in there.
It's
so
got...
I'm thinking, you know, a kitchen, it might not be as old as the main structure.
Yeah, it's got round nail heads, which would indicate post-1900.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Wire nails.
Okay. Yeah, I do have some blacksmith wrought square nails in mine, and you can tell the difference between the ages of the hay barn. The pillars up front are going to be the end post and my picket fence.
No, those are contemporary pillars?
Yeah. Yeah, I have a lot of architectural salvage that I'm going to use out here. I really came more for the gardening experience than I did for, you know, any more restoration on the house itself. And I live downstairs. It's kind of like a Savannah basement. People who own antebellums rarely get to see the structural members of
Now, do you have a brick floor in the basement?
It did originally have a brick floor on this side, and it has been covered. They poured cement and leveled it up and just covered the brick. I was told by the boy that did the renovation in the 90s that the right-hand side of the house was just dirt floor, just packed clay. See, all of this has been exposed. I try to keep a little cool air in. It's so damp. But what I believe, Chad, was that this was the original kitchen.
Okay.
And unlike a hall stairway, there was a stairway that went up here into a back room. And you can see that other structural supports separated this room from the back door. Now, I do have the original back door in the barn. Fortunately, they did save it. All that French door, of course, you know, has been replaced.
This is really neat.
They took antique pine and relayed this. It was refinished in Eatonton, and they relayed this over concrete. except that they put 18 by 18 porcelain tile in the kitchen. I imagine that the kitchen cabinets were put in, cheaply in the 1990s. I did not choose that paint color. It was that color.
I kind of like it. I kind of like it.
I've come to
It's a little. It brightens it up a little bit.
Yeah, it
This
does.
is really neat. Who painted this?
This is one of my family plantations in Augusta. It was done in 1968. The house is still standing. It's owned by a young architect and his family now. I did not descend in the direct bloodline. It was my great-grandparents' house. That was the last common ancestor, but my grandfather was given land in 1912, and he moved across the road. So this continued to be occupied by my great-uncle and great-aunt. It is still standing, but it's gone out of the family. But this was a 1968 painting. It's not that old.
Right.
One of my other aunts commissioned this from a boy who was in the medical illustration. And people ask me about the mountainous background, but actually this went down to the Savannah River. And you actually can see South Carolina across the riverbank. It was built in 1834, so it's older than this.
Yeah, I really like that paint color. It looks really good, I think.
I wasn't sure. It really shocked me to begin with. And she had a lot of accent furniture. I mean, her kitchen island was painted the same color, but they took that because it was a handmade piece.
These beams are just incredible.
Yeah, aren't they? And you can see some of the pegs, that were left. There's a peg right above you and over here. Now, he did put ceiling here to cover the upstairs floor base, but you can see it in the utility room. This was the original underside of the flooring. And there are square nails over here, which apparently he used to hang hides. They used this as a drying rack or something for the tanning process. This was a door, so they would have been able to come in this side of the basement floor from the outside. I have no idea what is behind this wall. I presume another structural support like that is in here.
And what's this right here?
This is a closet that was created when they moved the stairway. I have to watch for spiders. I'm always I rarely open
So when do you think that was built?
Early 1990s, and they used the same structural members from the other stairway when they reconstructed this one.
You can see the original paint on
Yeah, exactly. I hate spiders. I could have a snake crawl across my chest.
So what kind of stairwell would have they have had here originally?
It was over here.
Okay, okay.
If I come on up, they used all of the original members of the stairway, but they put it in the hall because in the original configuration, the stairway came up into the room. So the scar, is visible.
Oh yeah. Wow. Definitely.
And there would have been a landing right here. I don't know what this room would have been used for, possibly a dining room.
Which would make sense because you'd bring stuff up from the basement.
Yeah. Unless in the winter months they used one of the front rooms, the more formal rooms, for a dining room because it would have been heated. Fortunately, the mantles existed. The house has never been vacant, and then just cut a space, used the same treads.
Yeah.
But they've done weird things, like they took, the two back doors are original. These are the same paneling that you see in the governor's mansion in Milledgeville, the parallel panels. I think the governor's mansion was 1830s. But people copied a lot of the details. I don't know that the doors might not have been manufactured either in Milledgeville or Macon or Augusta. A lot of things were manufactured in Augusta and sent up here.
Huh.
I guess it could be repaired, but somewhere along the line, I think it was the guy that came and visited me, took this door off of the front, and he cut this oval. I mean, he took the original panel and destroyed it, just by using a jigsaw, and then he put cheap molding on it. I mean, it's horrible, but it's going to have to be changed.
Wow.
They had room for overhead lights inside, but apparently there wasn't enough height on the exterior, and I kind of miss having the lights that were
So is this the original front door?
No, this was here. This door was here.
Okay.
They cut it up and put that oval,
And then they filled it in?
and then they filled it in somehow, and then they actually added a strip to make this door fit.
So you don't have the original front door?
I think this is it.
Okay. Okay.
I don't know, it will be up to a future owner to decide how authentic. And all of this barn board shutters and everything, I guess Michael Payne created this himself.
Who's Michael Payne?
He was the young guy that owned the house from 1992, I think, to 2015.
Is this your picture?
I did it.
Are you serious?
My cousin.
That's beautiful.
Well, thank you. It's one of my cousins in Augusta.
Do you sell artwork?
I did years ago, but I went into commercial art. I had an advertising agency, so I went commercial.
That's really beautiful.
I was told that I had talent, but I needed to buy groceries when I was in my 20s.
Huh.
I mean, the closets could be made into, like little serving bars or something. I don't know.
Lord knows what happened to this door.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty grim. But
Could have been a rental. Well, I think it was ever a rental at one time.
No, the family were just, how should I say it? They were just kind of rednecks. They had 3 teenage boys that were rowdy. 2 of them shared this room, the younger brothers, and then the older brother who was 16 or 17. The Big Greek Revival, which was owned by Dr. Stone, but it says the next house sitting back from the street was built by Mr. Ezekiel Trice for his tanner. So that's the house next door. And then they say in the next lot, Mr. Trice built his home with a brick basement, marked by pink crepe myrtles and cedars. And then they talk about the names of people who lived here. There was a wagon repair shop next door, but the Methodist church tore that building down, and they built in, they're saying here 1889. That's what they have on the marker out front. But the raised cottages were very typical, really, of coastal communities. This is across the Savannah River from Augusta. It's really not an island, but they call it Beach Island. But it was a very prominent community in South Carolina in the 19th century. But yeah, these granite pillars, which you see used as fence posts all around Hancock County and some further north, like Lexington, they must have been quarried locally, but Michael Payne broke them all apart and built brick, and then he destroyed the chamfered original pillars on the front porch. They're out there. I don't know why he cut everything up the way he did, but see the exterior door that went into this room. the windows had all been sealed up along the front, but I see no evidence that there was a front door that came in here. You don't see any scarring in the brick underneath the porch. One of my friends in Charlottesville, Virginia, who's also a restoration architect, told me that rather than put opaque paint, that people in the South used boiled linseed oil. And that's what has turned the barns dark. They get that sepia color. Now this would have been added. I think this would have been a chicken house.
Oh yeah.
And you know, they would have had to secure the chicken houses against foxes. Probably carriage or wagon parking in this section.
So where are you seeing the square nails?
Right up here. There's a bigger one up there and then a smaller one. But they're different size heads, so you know they typically were created on site. There was a brick works here.
Huh.
So the bricks were probably made on site, and I would imagine that most of the timbers were cut. But I wanted to show you before we leave the front what he did when we replaced the granite from the pool. I don't really hate Victorian turned structural members, but to me this is a classically proportioned Greco-Roman building, and this is just like lace panties or bra or something that's stuck on a very classic building.
So it would have had square posts, you think?
I'll show them to you in a minute. He took them down.
Oh.
But the granite would have been up underneath where he rebuilt very heavy brick. But he didn't do the math right. He didn't measure the original spacing. Typically you didn't have a post or a column in front of a window. The window would have been centered in, you know, somehow between it. And in my picture it's a little bit better proportion.
What's the siding like underneath? Is that vinyl siding?
They have put vinyl, which has been on there for quite some time. I don't know what condition the siding is. I mean, I think it's a very sound structure compared to what you find.
Oh, here's the brick.
Careful of the spring. You can call them. He did some repair work around the window openings, which must have had some damage of some kind, but you can see...
There's the granite.
Right. He left only one.
And you said the others are in the backyard or something?
They were rolled down the hill. He broke them in half, and I found 3 halves. Unfortunately, you know, I found 3 halves. But you can see there's no scar for an original door. He did some repair work, but there was never a door because there's continual. Yeah,
This is Portland cement, isn't it? I'm a little bit surprised. It's not lime based. This is probably early 20th century.
It could have been repointed.
That could be.
Although this has always been protected.
Oh no, this feels like it's lime. Huh.
Now I know there's some Portland in repairs in other places.
Oh, wait, maybe it is. Yeah, it could just be repointed.
I thought this was some.
Maybe it is
I thought
lime based.
this was original.
Huh. Could be. Maybe it's just because it hasn't been exposed to the elements that it's harder.
Mm-hmm.
It hasn't softened.
That was my theory.
Because this is dark. This is more gray,
Yeah.
and this is bad repair because it doesn't allow the bricks to
Yeah.
flex.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're probably right.
But you know, this structural support for the front veranda is not shabby work. This is well done. Well, here's my fragment of the same kind of pot that had the feet.
Oh
It's
yeah.
odd that they found one too, because the owner probably bought several of them at the same time.
So these are just little scraps you
Yeah, I
found.
found there was a mitten.
That's neat. That's a neat pot.
I think that might have been the hinge from one of the outbuildings, smokehouse or something. They had a midden in here. I didn't take it too deep. I've just been excavating rocks.
Now, what is a midden?
It's a garbage dump.
I see.
It's typically describing prehistoric, like Native American dumps.
And then what's up with these rocks over here?
I'm going to do a rock wall garden. I excavated them from around trees and from around my mailbox. I inherited the azaleas. I didn't plant anything out here. And they always looked like they were sort of misplaced to me because they were out in the middle of the side yard. So I really do like circular garden spaces. So I was initially going to put it up closer to the front, but I decided to put it over here because I designed the arc by diameter of the circle around the